You ever just scroll through your Spotify playlist and say, God, I wish Alice in Chains had more music, but don't feel like waiting 5 more years for the band to drop a new album? Well, you're in luck, my friend, because with the power of artificial intelligence, we no longer need pesky things like people or creativity. You just plug a few prompts into a machine and boom, you just made your favorite artist's next big hit. Now, some people will say, no, a fucking robot cannot make music, it just steals from things that already exist. Well, today I'm here to prove you wrong. I want to show the world that a machine is just as capable of making a sick fucking tune as the next guy or gal. Let's do this thing. Now, before we start making our new Alice in Chains song, we need to get a few things clear so we know what direction to take with this. Now, songs are built from things called notes, and a series of notes makes up what's called a melody. Oh, you knew that part? Well, lucky you, Mr. I Know Everything. Anyway, the most common song structure you'll find these days is verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. Basically, the chorus is the main part of the song that everyone sings along to, the verse is the groovy part that leads into the chorus, and the bridge is just there to sound different and usually contains the guitar solo if the band bothers to include one, which Chains thankfully does. Now, some songs will stick an intro on there, sometimes an outro, sometimes both. Sometimes they'll be too lazy to come up with an ending and it'll just fade out of existence. But to keep things simple, we're going to stick to the structure, since Chains usually does the same. This is ChatGPT. Basically, you can ask it something and it'll try to respond in a human way. You can also ask it to make stuff for you, including website code, a video script that definitely isn't the one I'm currently reading, and in our case, music notes. So I started off simple and asked the bot to generate an intro for our song. I specified that it should be heavy and doom-like, but should intensify in order to build into the main riff. I also made sure to point out that this riff should be a half step down from normal guitar tuning, since basically all Chains songs are like this. So let's see what we got. Okay, well, it's a starting point. No song is perfect right off the bat. In fact, I would argue that the bot completely failing to adhere to any recognized scale or chord progression shows just how avant-garde and creative it's willing to be. Nice work, ChatGPT. Let's move on to the main riff now. So I told the bot that I wanted a main riff to serve as the meat of the song, be based primarily on power chords, have a driving yet still doomy rhythm, and be really catchy. I also figured I'd say to throw in any cool harmonics that might sound nice with the riff just to see what we got. And the bot clearly understood this, telling me how incorporating harmonics can, quote, add depth and texture to the riff. Nice, let's see what it gave us. Okay, I mean, You know, at first I thought I might have fucked up by not specifying that the song should be in 4/4 time, but then I had an epiphany when I realized that Them Bones is in 6/4, and that's a Chains all-time classic. So sure, let's keep the main riff in 5/4 time. Now, while this may not sound like much right now, that's because we haven't even added a bass line or a drum track yet, so let's do that. In order to add some more flavor to the song, I specified that the bass line should follow the riff, but not be afraid to deviate slightly. And what I got was an exact copy of the main riff. But that's okay, not every bass line has to be super complex and distinct. It's fine to play the exact same notes as the guitar and add nothing else to the song. So let's get to our drums. I had the bot give me a beat in 5/4 time that would build a solid foundation and told it exactly which drums I wanted it to utilize. I also had it give me a 4/4 beat that would help the intro build into the rest of the song.
I could headbang to this shit all day. Yeah! Yeah, that's fucking badass.
That's a fucking banger right there if I've ever heard it. Sounds good so far. Sounds like an epic fucking Chains song, right guys? The rest of the process for making the song generally followed the same formula. I wised up and had it generate all the verse tracks at the same time so that they should all hopefully work together, and as well had the bot give me a vocal melody that would stand in place of Lane Staley. I tried to keep the rest of the song to 4/4 so that it wasn't too all over the place, and told the bot in no uncertain terms that the verse, chorus, and bridge sections, while being distinct from the main riff, should still match the feel and energy of it. Now, the bot had a bit of a goof and thought that distinct meant spit out the exact same fucking riff for every single prompt. So while part of me wished to differentiate the other sections based on my own ear for music, better judgment won out and I decided to stay true to the bot's original vision. The only things I did change were some bass lines and a few other harmonies since they were very obviously dissonant, and I didn't want to be responsible for your medical bills when you inevitably bleed from the ears. Once we had our song structure built out, the last thing that was left was to generate a guitar solo to put over the bridge. I made it clear to the bot that the solo should be extremely complex and extremely cool. Like something Jerry Cantrell would play. What it gave me was this extremely long and elaborate sequence that would have taken forever to transcribe by hand. So I had another site convert the tab into a MIDI file, stuck it in FL, and adjusted it to fit and be the proper tempo. I also decided to align the notes so that they sound more in time, and kick the whole thing up a step since despite me specifically saying that should be in D-sharp tuning, the solo was very clearly a whole step down. In fact, basically every riff ended up having E as the root note. But then again, Grind's main riff has E as the root note, but that song is still in D sharp. So I again voted against changing the bot's artistic vision. Now the last thing to do was to get a title and lyrics for our song. I started off by just bluntly asking for fake Chain's song titles, but the list I got sounded more like the new Metallica album than Alice. These just sound like Metallica's. Did Metallica use ChatGPT to make their song titles? So I decided to get smart and provided a list of every Chain song to use as inspiration. But this only seemed to cause more issues. Cock-a-doodle-doo. What? After a while, I narrowed it down to 2 finalists. Bring Me Down and Earth in Ashes. While Bring Me Down was cool and sounded the most Chains-like to me, in the end I felt it was too similar to Put You Down. Probably because the bot directly copied it off my list. And went with Earth and Ashes. I still can't 100% see there ever being a Chain song with this title, but when stuck with strictly what the bot provided me, it sounded the most original. So then I just took this title and asked it to give me some lyrics. And the results were what I can only describe as breathtaking.
Earth and ashes, crumbling remains. Through the darkness we search for the flame. Desolation where hope is torn apart. We rise from the ashes, a fire in our hearts.
Wow. So after some more mixing, tweaking, and the closest approximation of the guitar tone I could get, I give you Earth and Ashes by Alice in Chains, courtesy of ChatGPT.
Alright, everyone. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
Wow. That was really fucking bad. Yeah, it was pretty bad. As I already stated, the bot seemed to just keep spitting out variations of the same riff over and over again, no matter how many times I asked. There's literally nothing to it, it's just 4 of the same quarter note, then 4 more spaced up a step, then half a step, maybe down a few, over and over and fucking over again. Despite my constant insistence, it refused to write anything that wasn't in standard tuning. I don't even think Alice in Chains has a single song in their entire discography that's in standard tuning, so this bot clearly just knows nothing about the band's style. The bass was an exact copy of the guitar every single time, and the drums were all just the exact same 4/4 rhythm. Even the 5/4 beat is just the same thing with another bar stuck at the end. And while the solo was by far the most interesting part, it's basically just a wave going up and down the scale until it just sort of ends. Oh, and let's not forget the vocal melody, aka Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Now, can I say I was expecting much? No, of course not. This is exactly what I knew I was gonna get, because despite the constant hysteria over AI art and deepfakes and shit like that, the truth is we're still a long way from AI ever being able to make anything convincing to anyone. Anything it does create is based entirely off what real people have made beforehand. So there's always going to need to be human involvement to at least some degree. And that's where I come in. Now, I'm not the greatest musician around, but I think I can take a crack at fixing this mess of a song. So first of all, we have the intro, which I think could actually work if we add a bit more groove and personality to it. I'm thinking something like Get Born Again for this section. Then the drums, which instead of immediately jumping into a 4/4 beat, we can space out a bit more, add some toms to it, and actually make it into something that builds into the main riff. Imagine that. The main riff I did change up quite a bit, including reformatting it into 4/4 and keeping it rooted in D sharp. I also gave it some more groove and a string bend, which always sounds cool in a Chain song, and had the bass follow the riff while still doing its own thing. Crazy concept, right? Main riff almost sounds like something from Death Magnetic, actually. Then the vocal melody, I changed to not just be a carbon copy of a fucking nursery rhyme. I also decided to play this melody on guitar before leading into the vocals, almost like something Nirvana would do. I added a pre-chorus section in order to add some tension, and for the chorus I made it into something that was very distinct from the verse beforehand. Now the original song I felt had a much stronger verse section than chorus, and I wanted to maintain this by not making the chorus too grand or spectacular. It's definitely not just a bad riff, this was fully intentional, guys, I swear to God. Finally, I recorded my own guitar solo to go over the bridge section, which while I'm not a great lead player, at least fills the role that it's meant to within the song. Alright, our revised song is done. Now we're gonna need an album cover to go along with it. Before I start generating any art, I realized I needed a title for this album. So it's back to fucking ChatGPT, I guess. It did its usual thing of giving me really shitty generic titles that sounded more like something from a fucking Christian rock album than Alice in Chains. But eventually I settled on Echoes.
It gave me it twice, I noticed. Actually 3 times. Jesus. You know what? I think it wants me to go with that. It gave me it 3 fucking times.
So then I took our new title and gave it over to DALL-E AI, which apparently is called Crayon now. Basically let it run wild. Actually, it gave me some cool results right off the bat. I tried adding a few negative prompts to see if I could get anything else, but after a bit I was just left with these 2. I then moved over to Midjourney where I wanted to see what it would give me based on a very specific prompt. What I got was, well, just plain bad. Why is William Duvall there? He didn't even show up until 2006. What? So with that, I got my finalists from DALL-E and tried to get Midjourney to play with them a bit. And while I got some seriously dope results at times, they weren't very Chains-like. So I just decided to upscale this piece, stuck the logo and title on there, and call it a day. So now, without further ado, I present Earth in Ashes by Alice in Chains, but listenable.
Hey guys, Mayan here editing this at 2 a.m. So there was an entire section of the video that I ended up scrapping where I tried to use AI voice synthesis to create a vocal track of Lane Staley singing my lyrics. But I'm a fucking idiot and can't figure out for the life of me how to work all this Python shit. And I just don't have time to figure it out right now. So I added a synth as a stand-in just to get an idea of what it might sound like. But yeah, that was pretty disappointing that I wasn't able to do that. Anyway, enjoy.
I definitely think it's way better. Now, is it amazing? Hardly. I usually spend months on my music as opposed to, like a couple hours, but I also didn't want to get too far away from the original since it's already wildly different. I also struggle getting the tones to match, so this is pretty much as good as I could get using free plugins. I ain't paying for shit, man, screw that. But anyway, this was a pretty fun project, and it's interesting to see how artificial intelligence responds when asked to be musically creative. The answer is not well. Personally, I think AI has the potential to be an incredibly useful tool for artists, developers, and a whole bunch of other people to speed up workflow and provide a basis for ideas to flow. If you're expecting it to provide an end product in and of itself, then you're going to be extremely disappointed. But when you take what it gives you and build upon it, it can be a real time saver. I'm excited to see what the future of AI holds. Well, at least up until some jerk-off gives it the keys to the nuclear codes. Anyway, see ya.